Welcome back to the Built Bodies podcast. I'm your host, Alan Jaramillo, and this podcast talks about the methods and tactics to make fitness a lifestyle instead of a crash course, all while building your body. And in today's episode, I'm going to be talking all about motivation, and I'm going to tell you the dirty little secret about people who are in shape and how they get motivation to continue to work out. So if you're struggling with motivation, you're maybe hitting a dry patch in your training. Maybe you're just not getting yourself to the gym enough times per week, even though you know it's going to be better off for you long term. Ultimately, this podcast is going to help solve that for you. So if you're struggling with that, stay tuned for the end of the show and we'll get to it right now. I'm going to start by going over the biggest myth that is out there regarding motivation, okay, and fit people. One of the biggest myths is that fit people have motivation to begin with, okay? As a coach and trainer, on all of my application forms, pretty much everyone puts down, I don't have motivation to go to the gym. And the problem with that is that a lot of people blame motivation. And as someone who is in shape, as someone who also knows other in shape people, I can tell you firsthand, it has nothing to do with motivation. And it really just has to do everything with that identity. And that I will prove that to you right now. If you lived with me and my dog and my other roommate who all live very healthy lifestyles, including my dog, even he's on a diet right now. But me and my roommate work out regularly, at least 5 to 6 times per week. And if you were in our household, how would that change your life? How different would that be? And the reason I bring this up is because it really just brings a lot to light and also kind of points out where a lot of people kind of fall short. If you surround yourself with people who have similar habits and identities that you really want to emulate yourself because you know it's going to help you out, that's one of the best ways that you can experience this change. If you lived with me, you wouldn't look at my routine and think it's odd, right? I go to the gym every day. I work out. I have other things that I do, obviously, throughout the day that keep me busy, but working out is a staple for me at least 5 to 6 times per week. And if you lived in my household, how different would that be? It would not be an unusual thing to go to the gym, right? Your identity would now start to kind of go towards that side of someone that's in shape and cares about their health if you're not there already. The other thing that is also good to understand too is that what's in my fridge versus what's in your fridge, right? If you're surrounded by different things and temptations that ultimately just make you go off track, that's also part of that identity change in regards to fitness, training, and health and nutrition, okay? So if you lived with me, how much easier would it be to say no to things if they're not even there to remind you to eat them in the first place? I can tell you right now, I don't have any sweets really in my fridge. I don't have them in my freezer. I don't have snacks on snacks on snacks in my pantry for specific reasons. Like that doesn't align with the identity that I personally have. I'm not a snacker. I don't sit there with a bag of chips and watch Netflix all night. I don't do any of that. I have a lot of more of a whole food based diet. And when I do decide to be flexible, like go out to restaurants and sushi and all that stuff, which I do, I have to go out and get it. It's not here in my home. So that just furthers the point that if you lived with me, it would be a lot easier to make the decisions that you know you want to make to get this fitness transformation, right? So you have to think about how can you change your environment and also your identity to try and make this easier to stick with you, okay? And right now we're going to go into the main point of the podcast, which is taken from James Clear, who wrote the book Atomic Habits. I have it right here. It is a great book to read if you are someone who's looking to explore behavior change, or maybe you're someone who you haven't gotten something to stick, whether it be the habit of as little as flossing your teeth, whether it be showing up to the gym or going for a 30-minute run 5 times a week. If you are someone who has goals, you have these habits that you know you want to stick to, but you just can't, this is a great read and listen. I've gone through this book a couple times and I always refer back to it when I'm coaching clients through different situations because that is my full-time job as an online coach. And a lot of the things that we do inside of our program involve behavior change, identity change, as well as just practical application application to someone's already busy life. So he actually talks about the 2-minute rule, okay? And it basically boils down like this. No matter how big a habit or task is, it can always be boiled down to a 2-minute iteration of that. So just to give you a couple examples from the book, he explains that reading before bed and trying to get that habit going can start out as reading 1 page per day. Doing 30 minutes of yoga becomes just pulling out the mat and that's it. Studying for class becomes just get to the part where you open your notebook, okay? And running 3 miles just becomes put on your running shoes. So if we lower that barrier, or we're lowering the barrier and we're making it easier to commit to something by only knowing that we have to do 2 minutes worth of work. If you know that you have a 5-mile run to do later today, if you think about those 5 miles, it becomes more and more daunting. But if you say, I'm just going to put my shoes on, it's a lot easier for you to at least show up to that specific task. And he also talks about a story inside of his book. And like I said, it's a great book to read. He talks about this ritual that a woman in New York had. She is in great shape. She had a ritual that she basically did almost every morning throughout the week. And it would go something like this. She would wake up, put her shoes on, get dressed, or I guess she would get dressed first. She would get dressed, put her shoes on, put a hat on if it was cold out or something, and then she would go immediately out to her street, and she would call a cab or hail a cab. And this was the 2-minute rule applied to her that got her to show up to the gym. So the whole entire ritual isn't go to the gym every morning. It's if I accomplish this much of a task or this 2-minute rule for myself, then I am more likely to just finish out that task, okay? And just to give it a little bit of a different application in regards to fitness is that if you boil it down to giving yourself the opportunity to go to the gym, right? And you're really putting off going to the gym. What if you just told yourself that why don't you just show up for the gym and warm up for 5 minutes, and if you feel like leaving, just leave? You see how that lowers the barrier of that activity? Because if you think, I have to do this entire 1-hour workout, that's not as attractive as just showing up for 5 minutes. And once you're there, the important thing is that you're changing your identity. You're a person who doesn't skip workouts. And that's really what James Clear talks about in this book, is that identity change. And identity change simply is just having an undeniable stack of evidence that you are this person. So I look at my past 10 years of lifting and running and doing all types of activities, and I look at that and I look at that and I say, I'm a fit person. I have so much evidence that proves that I am an in-shape person because of my body, because of all the workouts that I've done. I mean, at this point, I've done thousands of workouts in my entire life. And that's why I am very confident with my identity as an in-shape person. So if you're not there right now, we need to think about how do we lower the barrier of entry to get in? And this is really just getting yourself to get into the starting position in the first place. And this is something that I always talk about with clients too, is that you don't need things to be perfect when you first start. And this idea of going from 0 to 100 is what gets most people to start and quit fitness journeys all over the world. I believe the percentage here is like 97% of people can drop 20 pounds, but it's that same 97% that isn't able to keep the 20 pounds off. And that's because most people start fitness programs in kind of like just a bad way, where they start them to try and get quick results instead of changing their identity. And you can only fake an identity change for so long if you don't do the groundwork needed to really build that up over time. And a lot of people do challenges. A lot of people do these quick 30-pound weight loss drops. But again, the identity change, unless that takes place, it is going to be damn near impossible for you to keep that weight off long term. So let me relate this back to you for a second. If you are trying to get better at going to the gym, hey, this is Alan here. Just wanted to pop in and let you know that we are actually now accepting clients for the Shortcut to Shreds Blueprint. Now, this Blueprint has changed the lives of hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of men, and I look forward to you seeing the testimonials that we have to support this. We have helped hundreds of men change their lives and get rid of belly fat, lower back fat, as well as give them more energy throughout the day. So think to yourself, what would it be like if I had more energy? What would it be like if I had more confidence? What would it be like if I was finally able to get rid of my gut? How would that change your life? If that's you and it resonates with you, then feel free to apply using the link down below. And if you apply using that link below, one thing that you can do, and straight from the book here, just to give you like a perfect example, is that if you wanted to like shape your habits, as James says in this book, is that you can start by changing into your workout clothes or buying some workout clothes. That's phase 1. Okay. So you see, we're starting very small. Phase 2 is going for a walk in those workout clothes. Again, starting small. Phase 3 is driving to the gym, exercising for 5 to 10 minutes and leaving. Okay. Again, you are getting into that identity and that pattern of showing up for yourself. Okay. And then phase 4 would be to exercise 15 minutes 3 times a week. Phase 5 would be exercise 3 times per week. Okay. And now you've formed that habit. All right. And when I first started in fitness, I was someone who dreaded the gym, and I was someone who was afraid of the gym. But I went to cycling classes with my mom 2 times a week, and that was my way of getting my foot in the door. I didn't start out with a 5-day program. I didn't start out with going to the gym 6 days a week, 7 days a week, or anything crazy like that. And I also didn't start with the intention of just like going balls to the walls and losing 30 pounds. Okay. I always wanted to go from chubby to more muscular and toned. Okay. And I wasn't going to be doing that by dropping 30 pounds. I was a kid. Right. So going into that habit, it really made it much easier for me to start with that little bit, right? Until it became my identity, and that built up over time because I just started going to the gym with my mom to do those cycling classes. And then that ramped up to going off on my own. But it was that simple identity change and starting small that allowed me to ultimately get started. And I want to let you know that if you are someone who's having trouble sticking to a routine, there is absolutely no shame. And I definitely recommend starting small. So think about what your 2-minute rule can be. If you're putting off running, again, you can start with just putting on your running shoes. And if you don't want to complete the task, that's fine. Put your running shoes on. 9 times out of 10, when I ask clients to do this, they always tell me, I just ended up finishing the workout. And that's exactly the point, is that you're just trying to give yourself the identity and the votes that you are showing up for yourself, okay? Because if you become this person that doesn't skip workouts and you always at least show up, it's much easier for you to never throw in the towel and not go. And that's really what the beauty about this whole identity change process. Okay. So I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Built Bodies podcast. It was a little bit of a shorter one just to make sure that I can get this point across. It's a really good and powerful coaching point that I love to share with my clients. And when I try and have them to get better at their protein intake, show up for their cardio routine, show up for workouts in general, I use this 2-minute rule to allow them to lower that pressure of showing up for yourself. And again, if you show up for yourself enough times in that 2-minute rule, you're going to start to get that identity change that you're looking for, so you don't need to rely on motivation. Okay. Again, motivation isn't there. Sometimes you have it, sometimes you don't. Most fit people, they just operate on this autopilot because that's their identity. That's who they are. They don't miss workouts because it's part of who they are. And if you want to get to that point, because it's ultimately going to be better for your health and your physique goals, then follow these directions. All right. I hope you found this podcast well. This entire point and topic of conversation has totally changed my life in more areas than just fitness. And I hope it finds you well. All right. I hope you get value from this podcast. So thank you so much for listening. I will see you on the next episode of the Built Bodies podcast. And thanks for watching.